Sunny Hostin, her husband accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit. Okay, now let's read this. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
You know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained to.
If you average out the View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth.
And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a wealth.
Think about this for a moment. Each and every morning, you step in front of a national television camera and deliver ethics lessons to the entire country. You call out people in positions of power. You establish yourself as the moral guide of the nation. The studio audience cheers. The network celebrates you. Then your own husband gets charged with running a $450 million insurance fraud operation, listed among close to 200 defendants in what is now being labeled the biggest RICO case ever brought forward in New York history. Take a moment to truly absorb that.
Interesting, because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
You know, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but...
The hypocrisy here is almost too overwhelming to confront directly. And who is the very first person to shine a light on it? Not her fellow panelists, not the network itself, not a single person who shares that same table with her 5 days every week. It was Joe Rogan, seated in his studio, quietly and systematically dismantling Sunny Hostin's entire public identity in a monologue so precisely devastating that people were still discussing it weeks down the line. Today we are going to break down exactly how Rogan turned her supposed moral high ground into absolute wreckage, and what that means for her image, her program, and a legal fight that has only just begun.
Husband's doing something, if he's allegedly doing something like this, you guys would know if your wives were up to some nefarious stuff. But let's just not forget who she is. She's been, for years, lecturing America about morality, inequality, systemic failures, and look at her track record. How many times does she have to go on in the past 2 months and look at the camera and do a legal apology for all the stuff that she said on the show? And then she also, on Trump's win, calling the loss because of uneducated white women that Trump won.
We have to know that. This is accused.
All accused. Yeah, all accused, but he's in the RICO. This is a big RICO case that her husband's in.
Right around the holiday season, a blockbuster lawsuit quietly came to light alleging that Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, Sunny's husband, deliberately billed insurance providers for arthroscopic surgeries carried out on taxi, Uber, and Lyft drivers. Surgeries that those drivers reportedly had no medical need for. In exchange, he allegedly pocketed kickback payments. According to court documents reviewed by Page 6, the case identifies nearly 200 defendants in what prosecutors are describing as a sweeping racketeering and corruption scheme valued at roughly $450 million. This is not a paperwork error. This is not some minor misunderstanding. This is a full-scale federal criminal matter.
I also hate Joy Behar, so I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird, so I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, if the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of there are so many brilliant women out there, none of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View. I mean, they have brought in the lowest tier of the, what is it, the Y chromosome?
No, double
X.
Okay. Double X.
They brought in the lowest of the double X's for that one. It's rough.
The lawsuit reportedly took advantage of New York's 1974 no-fault insurance framework, where minor medical complaints were allegedly turned into highly profitable surgical procedures, forcing insurance providers and eventually ordinary working people to absorb the staggering financial losses. Despite the enormous weight of the RICO charges, Sunny's legal representatives pushed back without hesitation, with her attorney declaring the lawsuit entirely groundless and portraying it as a desperate move by a financially struggling insurance company attempting to bully medical professionals and reduce healthcare payouts. Forceful defense, powerful language, but powerful language alone cannot make headlines this enormous disappear.
This is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest fucking statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't believe
the other
Joy
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles. And then there's also, listen,
It doesn't make sense to me that a middle-aged woman could be dumb.
when you're worried about losing your job and you're worried about podcasts taking over and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump is Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us and he won, and this is fucking great, and Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
In a courtroom fight where the presumption of innocence collides head-on with what the public already believes, a strong counterargument does not automatically clear the air. When your husband's name appears in connection with one of the largest white-collar cases in the state's entire history, no one refers to it as a filing mistake. And while Dr. Hostin challenges these accusations inside a court of law, an entirely separate and equally punishing battle is already unfolding somewhere completely different.
In fairness, though, I mean, The View has to be, if you average out The View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And so it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin.
You think it's deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out. It's like if you had an idea for a premise and it was totally baked and half baked and you went on stage with it.
For a long time, Sunny Hostin has held what many would describe as a self-declared position of moral leadership on The View, dissecting inequality, uncovering systemic problems, and publicly scolding others with the certainty of a sitting Supreme Court justice. She repeatedly pushed her viewers to trust ABC News coverage rather than independent media figures, positioning herself as a protector against false narratives. Then the lens turned directly toward her own life. When your entire public reputation is grounded in refined morality and sound personal judgment, and your private life suddenly becomes tied to federal fraud accusations, the contrast does not merely feel dramatic, it feels absolutely crushing.
View co-host Sunny Hostin's husband, Emmanuel Hostin, has been accused of federal insurance fraud. According to a new lawsuit obtained by Page Six, the orthopedic surgeon was one of 200 defendants named in one of the biggest racketeer influenced and corrupt organization cases ever filed in New York. Emmanuel was accused of federal insurance fraud and, quote, getting kickbacks by performing surgery and billing a company that insured taxi companies and Uber and Lyft drivers. According to the documents, he knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgery.
All at once, every single finger-pointing speech about integrity began sounding completely empty, and viewers started raising a question that no one sitting on that panel had any desire to answer. If her judgment really is as sharp as she has always claimed, how did she fail to notice what prosecutors are now calling one of the most significant financial scandals in New York's recent memory? You would naturally expect her co-hosts to come to her defense, yet what followed was nothing but total silence. For a program celebrated for its fearless opinions and its obsession with breaking headlines, The View became strangely and uncomfortably hushed. Whoopi Goldberg put forward a vague and carefully diplomatic comment about honoring everyone's privacy, while Joy Behar responded with her trademark eye roll and offered not a single word about the actual scandal.
I think the problem with that show is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. And they always bring on a token conservative woman, and they yell over her and silence her. And, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. Yes. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings. Yeah. Everybody's just...
Right on schedule, the audience applause erupted almost as if a button had been pressed, as though the entire subject had been quietly placed under a strict no discussion policy. A textbook example of crisis management in action. Avoid it entirely, keep smiling through it, and hope the public loses interest. But when your co-host's husband is confronting serious RICO charges, going silent does not project confidence. It projects anxiety, like a bright flashing sign reading, "We want absolutely nothing to do with this." In the world of daytime television, that kind of obvious avoidance causes far greater damage than simply addressing the controversy head-on. There was, however, one individual who had zero intention whatsoever of staying silent. And that individual was Joe Rogan.
The show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested hen house.
And that
not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, you know, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
Those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point. Most of those people can't leave the
On his enormous Spotify platform, Rogan did not let a single second pass before zeroing in on the staggering contradiction. Sunny Hostin had been standing before the nation delivering ethics lectures while her husband was allegedly constructing a $500 million scheme so sophisticated it could have served as the plot for its own streaming series. He ridiculed the network's own narrative, that entire Trust ABC News over Independent Voice's message, then exposed the complete absurdity of receiving moral guidance from someone whose household now has a direct connection to federal fraud accusations. Rogan's style is immediate, blunt, and completely raw, no legal team reviewing and approving every single line. And in fewer than 10 minutes, he transformed what might have remained a minor entertainment gossip item into a viral cultural flashpoint that did not simply erode Sunny's standing, it actively strengthened his own reputation as the most prominent critic of hypocrisy among the powerful.
Surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow. Hostin's attorney, Daniel Twites, denies the allegations, calling the lawsuit a meritless attempt by a near-bankrupt insurance carrier to intimidate doctors and restrict healthcare benefits. The case involves claims that Hostin performs unnecessary surgeries on patients after minor accidents without exploring less invasive treatments, with American Transit citing New York's 1974 no-fault law as contributing to widespread.
Let there be no confusion, this reaches far beyond internet traffic and late-night jokes, because the real-world consequences here are brutally serious. A $450 million RICO case does not simply produce negative media coverage. It can invite government scrutiny that locks down assets, draws marital property into active legal claims, and pulls spouses directly into civil litigation faster than anyone can prepare for. If prosecutors or insurance companies achieve even partial success, Sunny could be staring down asset seizures, crippling financial penalties, or complete economic collapse. Marital property laws placing joint bank accounts, co-owned real estate, and personal belongings all squarely within legal reach. Picture those upscale weekend gatherings cut short by court orders, high-end possessions treated as collateral, and bankruptcy proceedings forcing deeply embarrassing financial disclosures, every intimate financial detail laid completely open for public consumption. For someone whose entire professional identity depends on unshakable polished control, that degree of public exposure is not simply an inconvenience. It is the kind of moment that defines or destroys an entire career.
Did you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said
This scandal uncovers something that goes far beyond one family's private legal difficulties. It tears apart the ideological echo chambers that have been carefully constructed within mainstream media. The View has faced repeated criticism over the years for existing inside a self-reinforcing information bubble, occasionally welcoming alternative viewpoints not for the purpose of real conversation, but purely as on-camera targets to push back against. That bubble has now broken apart from within, leaving audiences confronting the single most unsettling question of all. If they genuinely could not recognize what was allegedly unfolding inside their very own home, what other realities have completely escaped their attention? And every single time mainstream media is caught flat-footed like this, Joe Rogan's listenership gets measurably bigger.
Always the people that always do the pointing, and it always comes back to them, all right? So when you said, this is the largest RICO case ever filed in the state of New York. You guys, wrap that around your brain. That's bigger than the mafia case. Like the mafia one was number one. This one takes it over. So he was scamming insurance companies from taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. He was performing unnecessary surgeries and then providing fraudulent medical services in exchange of
every deliberate silence, every precisely engineered public relations response, and every strategic sidestep away from the undeniable keeps reinforcing the exact same message that legacy media has become entirely disconnected from any real sense of accountability. At a time when confidence in major institutions has reached historically low levels, that is an extraordinarily precarious place to stand. Sunny Hostin, who once held the attention of millions through the power of her moral platform, is now struggling to prevent that very voice from being buried beneath court summons, frozen accounts, and growing speculation about financial ruin. The View is now facing a pivotal crossroads: meet this scandal with the same fearless energy they bring to everyone else's controversies, or simply pretend the entire situation does not exist. For as long as Joe Rogan and an expanding chorus of critics continue directing attention straight at the contradiction, silence will never be enough to shield them.
But it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny's very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
That's what I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
What this entire story ultimately lays bare is something that the media establishment has absolutely no desire to acknowledge. In the world we live in today, raw authenticity defeats carefully manufactured virtue without exception. Audiences are no longer interested in polished performances. What they demand is genuine transparency. Even when it is deeply uncomfortable, even when it strikes painfully close to home, the moment your personal life becomes entangled with federal criminal investigations, no amount of network damage control, no pre-recorded applause, and no perfectly worded official statement will be enough to rescue you. If this breakdown gave you something genuinely worth thinking about, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth coverage, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a significant update.